What does it really mean to be fearless? Let's get one thing straight from the start. Being fearless does not mean you don't feel fear. It does not mean you become some superhero who walks into danger without hesitation. Fear is a natural biological response. It is built into your nervous system to protect you. When you see a threat, your brain activates the amygdala, releases adrenaline, increases your heart rate, and prepares your body for action. That reaction is not weakness. It is survival design. So if fear is natural, then what does being fearless actually mean? It means you understand fear instead of being controlled by it. It means you act with clarity even when your heart is beating fast. It means you make decisions based on logic, purpose, and long-term vision rather than short-term discomfort. A fearless person still feels fear, but they do not surrender their life to it. Most people misunderstand fear because they never study it. They treat it like a mysterious enemy. But fear is simply a prediction mechanism. Your brain tries to anticipate pain, rejection, embarrassment, failure, or loss. The problem is that the brain often exaggerates risk. It overestimates danger and underestimates your ability to handle it. That gap is where most dreams die. In this video, we are going to break fear down in the simplest way possible. Step by step. No motivational fantasy. No fake positivity. Just practical understanding. By the end of this journey, even if you start with zero knowledge, you will clearly understand what fear is, why it controls most people, and how you can train yourself to move beyond it. Understanding fear, the science behind it. Before you can defeat fear, you need to understand how it works. Fear is not magic. It is not destiny. It is a neurological process. Inside your brain, there is a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Its job is simple: detect threats and trigger survival mode. When it senses danger, whether real or imagined, it activates the fight, flight, or freeze response. Your heart starts beating faster. Your breathing changes. Muscles tighten. Your body releases stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. This reaction evolved thousands of years ago to help humans survive predators and natural threats. Back then, fear helped you avoid being eaten. Today, the predator is usually a job interview, public speaking, rejection, or starting something new. The body reacts the same way, even though your life is not actually in danger. Here's the important part: your brain does not clearly distinguish between physical danger and social discomfort. To your nervous system, getting criticized can feel similar to being attacked. That's why fear feels intense even when the risk is small. But intensity does not equal reality. Just because something feels dangerous does not mean it is. When you understand that fear is simply a biological alarm system, and sometimes an overactive one, you stop treating it like an authority. You start seeing it as data. And data can be analyzed. Once you analyze fear instead of obeying it, you take the first real step toward becoming fearless. The two types of fear: real versus imagined. Now let's divide fear into two clear categories. This is where everything becomes simple. The first type is real fear. Real fear protects your survival. If a car is speeding toward you, your fear response helps you move away quickly. If you are standing at the edge of a dangerous cliff, fear keeps you from falling. This type of fear is rational. It is based on immediate physical risk. It is useful and necessary. You should respect it. The second type is imagined fear. This is where most people get trapped. Imagined fear is not about physical survival. It is about psychological discomfort. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of looking stupid, fear of starting something new. These fears exist mostly in your mind as predictions about what might happen. And most of those predictions are exaggerated or completely wrong. Your brain creates worst-case scenarios to protect you. It assumes that embarrassment equals social death. It assumes failure equals permanent loss. But logically, failing at a project does not end your life. Being rejected does not erase your value. These are temporary events, not existential threats. Yet the brain reacts as if they are life or death situations. Becoming fearless starts with this awareness. You do not need to eliminate all fear. You only need to question imagined fear. When you separate real danger from mental projection, you regain control. Instead of running from every uncomfortable situation, you can calmly ask, is this truly dangerous, or is my brain just overreacting? That single question changes everything. Why most people stay afraid. Now that you understand fear, let's talk about why most people never overcome it. The main reason is conditioning. From childhood, people are taught to avoid mistakes. In school, wrong answers are punished. In society, failure is mocked. In families, security is prioritized over risk. Slowly, the brain learns a pattern. If I try something new and fail, I lose approval. Over time, this fear of judgment becomes stronger than the desire to grow. Another reason is comfort addiction. The human brain loves predictability. Familiar routines feel safe because they require less mental energy. Stepping outside that routine creates uncertainty. Uncertainty activates fear, so instead of facing discomfort, most people choose familiarity, even if it keeps them stuck in average lives. There is also the illusion of control. People believe that by avoiding risk, they are staying safe. But in reality, avoiding growth creates long-term risk. Not learning new skills, not taking opportunities, not speaking up, these choices slowly reduce confidence. And reduced confidence increases fear even more. It becomes a loop. Fear leads to avoidance. Avoidance leads to weakness. Weakness creates more fear. Here's the hard truth. Fear does not shrink when you run from it. It expands. The only way to reduce fear is exposure in action. The moment you start moving toward what scares you, the brain begins to update its predictions. It realizes this is uncomfortable, but not deadly. That's when transformation begins. The cost of living in fear. Now let's talk about consequences. Because fear is not just a feeling, it has a price. When you constantly avoid what scares you, you slowly shrink your world. You stop applying for opportunities. You stop sharing your ideas. You stop taking risks that could upgrade your life. On the surface, it looks like safety. But in reality, it is limitation. Every time you choose comfort over courage, you reinforce the belief that you are not capable. Fear also damages self-respect. Think about it. When you know you should take action but don't, something inside you notices. Your subconscious mind keeps score. Over time, this creates internal doubt. You start questioning your own strength. That quiet self-doubt becomes heavier than the original fear itself. There's also the long-term regret factor. Studies on human psychology consistently show that people regret the chances they didn't take more than the mistakes they made. Failure is painful, yes. But regret lasts longer. Fear tricks you into avoiding short-term discomfort, but it often creates long-term dissatisfaction. Being fearless is not about chasing danger. It's about refusing to let fear dictate your potential. When you understand the cost of inaction, you begin to see courage not as an extreme trait, but as a necessary life skill. If you want growth, confidence, and real progress, you cannot build them inside a comfort zone. How to start training your courage. Now we move from theory to action. Because understanding fear is step 1. Training courage is step 2. Courage works like a muscle. If you never use it, it stays weak. If you train it consistently, it grows stronger. And just like physical exercise, you don't start with extreme weight. You start small. If public speaking scares you, begin by speaking in small groups. If rejection scares you, start by asking simple questions where the stakes are low. The goal is gradual exposure, not dramatic transformation. The brain learns through evidence. Every time you face a small fear and survive it, your nervous system updates its data. It realizes, this situation did not destroy me. That reduces future anxiety. Over time, your threshold for discomfort increases. What once felt terrifying becomes normal. This is not motivation. This is neurological adaptation. Another powerful method is reframing. Instead of labeling the physical sensations of fear as danger, label them as readiness. Increased heart rate? That's energy. Sweaty palms? That's activation. Shallow breathing? That's preparation. The body is not trying to stop you, it is preparing you. The interpretation changes the experience. Becoming fearless is a process of repetition. Small actions, repeated consistently, reshape your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is scared, and start seeing yourself as someone who acts despite fear. That identity shift is where real power begins. Rewiring your mind through exposure. Now we go deeper. Courage is not just about forcing yourself into scary situations. It's about systematically retraining your brain. Your brain works on prediction. If you avoid something repeatedly, the brain assumes it is dangerous. If you approach it repeatedly and survive, the brain updates its model. This process is called exposure learning. It is one of the most effective psychological methods for reducing fear and anxiety. The logic is simple. Safe repetition reduces threat perception. But here's the key: exposure must be intentional and progressive. If you jump into something extremely overwhelming, your brain might reinforce fear instead of reducing it. So you build a ladder. At the bottom are small, mildly uncomfortable actions. In the middle are moderate challenges. At the top are the big fears. You climb step by step. Each successful step builds neural confidence. Consistency matters more than intensity. One brave action followed by weeks of avoidance does not create change. Small repeated exposure rewires neural pathways. Over time, the amygdala becomes less reactive to the same stimulus. The fear response weakens. The situation becomes neutral instead of threatening. This is how fearlessness is built, not through hype, but through neuroplasticity. Your brain is adaptable. It reshapes itself based on behavior. When your actions signal safety in previously feared situations, your internal alarm system recalibrates. And once the alarm lowers, clarity increases. Detaching from outcome. One of the biggest reasons fear becomes overwhelming is attachment to outcome. Most people are not afraid of action itself. They are afraid of what might happen after the action. What if I fail? What if they reject me? What if I look foolish? The mind creates scenarios, and the emotional weight of those imagined outcomes freezes you. Here's a practical shift. Focus on process, not outcome. You can control effort. You can control preparation. You can control consistency. But you cannot fully control results. Outcomes depend on multiple variables: other people's decisions, timing, market conditions, random factors. When you attach your self-worth to something you cannot fully control, fear increases. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you care about growth more than validation. Instead of thinking, "I must win," you think, "I must learn." When the goal becomes learning and improving, failure loses its sting. It becomes feedback instead of a verdict. That mental shift dramatically reduces fear. High performers in any field understand this principle. They optimize the inputs. They accept uncertainty in outputs. When you detach from needing a perfect result, you free yourself to act boldly. Fear weakens because the stakes feel lighter. You are no longer protecting your ego. You are building your capability. Living a fearless life. Let's bring everything together. Fear is not your enemy. It is a biological signal. Sometimes it protects you. Often it exaggerates risk. The difference between an average life and an extraordinary one is not the absence of fear, it is the response to it. When you understand how fear works, separate real danger from imagined threats, and train yourself through consistent exposure, fear loses its control. Being fearless is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming rational under pressure. It is about choosing action over avoidance, growth over comfort, and learning over ego protection. Every time you move toward discomfort intelligently, you expand your capacity. And expanded capacity builds confidence. Confidence reduces fear. It's a cycle, but this time, it works in your favor. Remember this: courage is built through repetition. Identity is built through action. You don't wake up fearless one day. You become fearless by repeatedly proving to yourself that you can handle difficulty. That proof rewires your brain and reshapes your self-image. Over time, what once felt impossible becomes normal. So the next time fear shows up, don't treat it like a wall. Treat it like a signal. Analyze it, question it, then move forward anyway, intelligently, calmly, and consistently. That is how you build a fearless life.